up. Wait a minute.
This is Carla Renata, aka the Curvy Critic, and I shoot straight from the hip.
Yeah, you know I'm always shooting straight from the hip.
Let's take a trip around the curve. Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to another episode of the Curvy Critic with Carla Renata. Honey, first of all, let me just say that Wicked interview, that little snippet of the Wicked interview that I have been seeing all over social media is kind of bananas. So thank y'all for hyping a sister up. And then if that wasn't bad enough, I forgot to show this last week. If all of that weren't enough, I got this message from who? From Ariana Grande. She said she loved me, that her and Cynthia loved me. I was so excited. So, just so you know, the witches love me. I love them. All is good with the world. If this is your first time joining me, give me 2 thumbs up if you are on YouTube. If you're watching this via LinkedIn or Facebook Live or Instagram or any other place that has live streaming, thank you so much for joining me, whether it's in real time or whether you watch it after the fact. I wholeheartedly appreciate it. Brandon, as always, reaches out to me and he tells me I need to watch Spellbound. Also, I'm seeing Moana 2 on Tuesday. I'm seeing Moana 2 tomorrow, I believe. So I'll tell you what I feel about that. And I have seen Spellbound and I already reviewed it here last week. So check out that review. But yeah, thank you so much, Brandon, for popping in as always. So this week, y'all, I'm stepping away from the musicals a little bit, and we getting a little serious. So I always talk about what I did the week before. And this week is no different. So last week, after I was basking in the glow of my wickedness, I went over to Hollywood to see the premiere of The Piano Lesson. Pictured from left to right is Academy Award winner Denzel Washington, his daughter Katya, his wife Pauletta. That's another daughter, don't know her name. Malcolm Washington, the director, and John David Washington, the other brother. So it's a Washington family affair. It's produced by Denzel and his wife, Pauletta. Malcolm is directing. John David and Danielle Deadweiler are starring in it. This is me and Kelly Carter, and the lovely Christine at the opening night party after we saw The Piano Lesson. And in my outfit, as some of my friends called me looking like a disco ball. Yeah, I heard that you said that about me. You shall go, remain nameless. But yeah, I heard what you said. Anyway, The Piano Lesson is streaming right now on Netflix. Please do yourselves and check it out. It is spectacularly directed by Malcolm Washington. He does such a great job on it. I would hate for you all to see it, and I'm sure it is beginning to be a little bit more in the conversation of the award season. So there's that. Anywho, I'm going to talk about a couple of films today that I mentioned in the prologue. I'm going to talk about a film called Ernest Cole, Lost and Found. I'm going to show you some interviews from Man on the Inside, which is streaming on Netflix. I'm going to talk about this documentary, which I think is really important to talk about, called Surveilled by Ronan Farrow. That's Mia Farrow's son. And if you remember last year, he came out with a documentary where he talked about, he really delved into his sister's story, and check that out. And I'm also going to talk about Blitz. I have been promising for weeks I was going to talk about Blitz, and I'm finally going to get into it. So let's get into it, shall we? Blitz was released on Apple TV on November 1st, and it was directed by Steve Mcqueen, who also directed the beautiful Lupita Nyong'o in 12 Years a Slave. It's on Apple TV. The music is gorgeously done by Hans Zimmer. And in World War II London, this 9-year-old named George, expertly played by Elliot Heffernan, is evacuated to the countryside by his mother, Rita, played by Saoirse Ronan, that you see right there. And they escape the bombings. Defiant and determined to return to his family, George embarks on a journey back home as Rita searches for him. Let me tell you something about this movie. It's a film that's really hard to watch because it's dealing with such a dark, heavy subject, and we're living in such dark, heavy times right now that everybody's all about the musicals. They're all about the Honoras and the Wickeds and the Ends and all these films that have music in them because people want to escape the reality. But the reality is that in World War II, London, Germany, Berlin, so many places, it was not lovely for people and they were having a hard time. And this film centers on that subject through the lens of a child, not only a child, but a biracial child. So Saoirse Ronan's character, Rita, ends up getting pregnant by this black soldier. They drag him off somewhere. We don't know if he's dead, whipped, or whatever, but we can guess that if it's happening in World War II, he probably met his demise. She goes through and has the baby, and it's this beautiful little boy. But things get a little funky once the war starts to get closer to home and Hitler is talking about invading different territories. So she puts a little string around his neck and sends him away with a bunch of other children in hopes of saving him, saving his life. And what ensues is he becomes like a little Oliver Twist. So this is the biggest problem I had with the movie. I love the movie, but it was giving me Oliver Twist in World War II is what it was giving me. And I don't know exactly how I feel about that, but I know how I feel about it attacking the difficulties of raising a child that is biracial. That is real then and it is real now. And they show what's beautifully executed is the shelters and the bunkers that these people are inhabiting in, trying to make it feel like normal, trying to make it feel like home. And at one point, the camera focuses on this ballroom that's full of life, full of people dripping in furs and jewelry. And then seconds later, a bomb hits that location and you see that same location full of corpses, full of people with no life and other people coming in to, rob off of them. It's heartbreaking. It really is. But what isn't heartbreaking is the performance of Elliot Heffernan. He is carrying this film. Saoirse Ronan is in the film and she is the face that you see on all the posters promoting the film. But that little boy, let me see if I have the picture of him. This little boy, George, his character's name is George. Elliot Heffernan is carrying this. Here he is. Elliot Heffernan, that little boy right there, he plays her son. He is carrying that movie. And I love when I see children carrying a film because that means that child's talent is insurmountable, that this director thought that this child could carry this film. I loved this for him. So again, it's called Blitz. It is now streaming on Apple TV Plus. I don't have a picture of Queer, but I'll just talk about it. Over at A24 in limited release on November 27th, which is coming up this week. So you got lots of assignments for Thanksgiving, honey. There's a film that's going to be released with Daniel Craig. Yes, 007, honey. It is directed by Luca Guadagnino, and it premiered at the 81st Venice Film Festival this year in September, where it played in competition for the Golden Lion. It is beautifully shot, and that's not predictable as most of Luca's films are. But it deals with in 2024, it's dealing with a period drama with a screenplay by Justin Curitis. I always mispronounce people's names because their names be difficult. Damn, I be trying my best though. Based on the 1985 novella of the same name by William S. Burroughs. Set in 1950s Mexico City, this film follows an outcast expert, Daniel Craig, who becomes infatuated with a younger man, Drew Stanley. He recounts his life in Mexico City, and he pursues this young man named Allerton. And Allerton is a U.S. Navy serviceman recently discharged from Jacksonville, Florida. Baby, I was all in the music. Prince's song Musicology showed up. What I love about Luca Guadagnino's directing is he is not a slave to having a period film have period music. He will use contemporary or modern music if it's going to drive the point home of the action that you see on the film. Seeing Daniel Craig be a queer man in a major motion picture after inhabiting James Bond 007 for, I don't know, decades, was refreshing to watch and fascinating, fascinating at best. Not because he was playing a queer man, but because he inhabited the role so fully and completely and unapologetically, as did the young man who plays his love interest, Drew Starkey. This film is raw, it's real, and it shows a man who's not only struggling with his age, but he's struggling with his queerness and he's struggling with his drug addiction. It is a fascinatingly complex film, but I highly suggest watching it. It is called Queer. It will go worldwide in February 2025, but it's coming to a theater near you in limited release on November 27th, which is right around Thanksgiving time. A Man on the Inside. Now, I sat and watched this, and y'all know I don't review shows because I'm on TV shows, as we have mentioned numerous times here at the Curvy Critic. But there was a show that came on Netflix, or that's coming on Netflix, called A Man on the Inside. And it deals with this retired professor played by Ted Danson. He feels like life has nothing new in store for him. And a year after his wife's passing, he's become kind of stuck in his routine of waking up and doing the same thing every day, which is causing him to grow distant from his daughter, masterfully played by Mary Elizabeth Ellis. She plays Emily. But when he spies a classified ad from a private investigator, Julie, played by Lila Rich Creek Estrada, he's inspired to roll the dice on a new adventure. Now, Charles's mission is to go undercover inside Pacific View Retirement Home in San Francisco to solve the mystery of a stolen family heirloom of one of the residents. Are you with me so far? Good. And then what happens is he ends up becoming a suspect and baby shenanigans ensue. I don't want to tell you the whole premise of the show because I want you to watch the show. But I also want you to take a look and a listen of this interview I did with the entire cast, which includes Stephanie Beatrice. I'm having trouble with this mouse over here. Here we go. Which includes Stephanie Beatrice, Ted Danson, Emily, Mary Elizabeth Ellis, and Lila Rich Creek Estrada, as well as the show's showrunner, Michael Shore. Take a look and a listen, y'all.
Hi, I'm Carla, the Curvy Film Critic. Hello, gentlemen.
I love the title. How are you?
I am great, and I'm glad you love the title. I love it too.
Yeah.
So, if you were going to do a second season of A Man on the Inside, would you contemplate doing it from a musical perspective?
I would.
No! No! I can't sing a note. The idea of singing terrifies me.
I was
can't
literally
even
I
keep
was
a beat.
about to say that. I was like, I think that it would be the end of my career and certainly Ted's career
Yeah. No.
if we were to contemplate that. Yeah, so no.
That was hilarious. Oh my God. Working on this project, did it change your ideology about what you think a retirement community is? Because it changed mine.
It was a little eye-opening because Dee Dee, Stephanie Beatrice's character, at one point says to one of her employees, these are grown adults. We cannot infantilize them. And I think that my biggest misconception was that it was about coddling. It was about like, let's make sure everybody's okay, and and it's not at all that. It's like these people are adults, and we need to treat them like adults and respect them as adults. And that was there's a lot more hands off, like just make their lives easy and comfortable, but not intervening all the time, which is what I imagined it was. So that was sort of eye-opening for me, and a lot of the best and most interesting ideas about Pacific View in the show came directly from speaking to people who work in those places and have devoted their lives to caring for people in their most vulnerable time, which is an incredible service they provide.
Yeah, I asked that question because my mother was a registered nurse for years, and we watched this together.
Oh, really?
So she was like, you should ask them that. I'm like, Mommy, I will. I wanted to find out, Ted, from you, there's the scene that you have with your daughter in the car is so...
My favorites.
It's one of my favorites too. It's so vulnerable and so open and so honest. And I'm just wondering for you, how did it feel to be that raw in that moment?
Wonderful. I really, truly. And what I loved about it was these are two people trying to connect and who do love each other. But his emotional makeup, my emotional makeup is one of compartmentalizing. you find out sometimes for good reason, but you think you're going to protect your loved ones by not telling them every truth, and just so missing what she wanted completely. Like, he keeps interrupting, going, "This is a great conversation," and tries to put in ear pods, so he can do the drive, listening to Ezra Klein. But I just love that scene. Yeah.
It was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And
Sorry, can I just say, because when you asked me that, I just flashed back on my daughter, who's now 44. But she used to say, something at one point, "Dad, you come in and you do hit and run love, and then you go out the door. You love me, I know you love me, but it's hit and run." And it was like, whoa.
How did you feel about that?
I wanted to deny it. No, that's not true. And it was so blatantly true. But it was one of the biggest gifts she gave me. Holy moly.
Thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful.
Yeah, true.
Oh my
sadly.
goodness.
Yeah.
That was really, really beautiful. Thank you so, so much.
Yes.
You are hilarious. I cannot. That's so freaking funny. Speaking of which, did you like being able to bounce back and forth between the comedy and dramatic elements, characterization-wise? Because it looks like it's a gift. Or it was a gift for us.
It's my great joy in life, because I think that's what life is anyway, especially when you're aging. It hurts. It's hard. There's sadnesses, there's grief, there's loss. So to keep your sense of humor alive, I think is so important. But I love it.
Yeah, that's what the documentary was so special in portraying, and it's what we really wanted this to be. This is a comedy show. There's going to be jokes. It's an inherently funny idea. A 76-year-old man becomes an undercover spy for the first time in his life. But the point of the documentary, which became the point of the show, is much more about human connection and about community and about keeping yourself from just shrinking into a little tiny nub of a person as you age, and instead finding joy and happiness and meaning in other people and the relationships that you have with other people. And there's not a ton of romance in the season, but there is one great love story, and the great love story is between Charles and Stephen McKinley Henderson's character Calbert, who it's not very often you make a new friend, and they form a friendship, and that friendship becomes kind of the most meaningful and important part of Charles's life. And the story really is, at the end of the day, about how the lengths you will go to maintain a friendship. And that's one of the things I love the most about the season.
I love the season. I just want to end it by saying this. I think that aging is a gift, because there's so many people that don't get to see the age that we're at. And so instead of people begrudging getting older, they should embrace it, because it's a gift.
What I like to say is aging is the good outcome. Aging is the best case scenario.
That part. 6
right?
feet under is the other one.
Yeah.
Which one you gonna take? This one or that one?
Given the option.
And don't chicken out and take the 6 feet under.
That part.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. This was lovely. Thank you
Yeah,
so
it was.
much.
Pleasure.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
All right, let me make sure I
Yeah, don't hit the mic.
because I
Not
always.
your first rodeo.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Say hello to your mother.
I certainly will. Now, if you could be a woman on the inside, where would you want to be a woman on the inside at? Because I kind of love the premise of this, infiltrating, a retirement community to figure out what's going on. I kind of love that premise.
Stephanie is
Stephanie
very
has an
excited
answer.
to tell you.
Okay, Stephanie, come on, girl.
Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I could be one of them, but perhaps a coach. I would love to be a fly on the wall in those rooms. I would, and I'm gonna just get in those girls' ears too. I would fucking.
Then you would love they have a documentary series.
Yes.
I've watched
Yes,
it.
it's so
I know,
good. It's
Carla.
amazing.
I know.
She's like,
She
oh no,
knows.
girl, I've already
No,
seen
I'm
it.
already way invested. I love.
And what I also loved about all three of you all in this series is that you all had very strong trajectories, regardless of what your character was. How refreshing was it for you to be able to play women who owned who they were and their autonomy in their characters in the situations that they were in?
Oh, it was great.
Incredible,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I loved playing a boss, she's fierce and strong and all of that. And lovely to get to play with Ted, who is the antithesis of that. He's just the opposite of her personality. But yeah, I loved that. It was just so refreshing, so strong and so cool, and I think a really great example for younger women to see as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I am so excited that I got to play a mom and also a daughter. I feel like a lot of people, you know, they call it the sandwich generation, and there are a lot of people that are here right now sandwiched in between taking care of their older parents and taking care of their children at the same time. My character got to also be at work, like a working mom, and frazzled, but also like super invested in like the well-being of the people around her. And so it felt like a whole big full life, and that's super exciting to get to play always, and especially as a woman, to not just be like, oh honey.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I love.
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Oh honey.
Oh, honey. Why did you say that?
I think something Mike Schur does really, really well in all of his work is create these really complex, interesting, funny, dynamic characters, regardless of their sex or gender. We just happen to have been women in these roles,
Or age. Yeah.
really, truly, like, and the writing staff also did an incredible job of really like giving us so much to play and be. And they really feel, I feel like when you watch the show as an audience member, you're going to see yourself.
Yes.
And you might identify with someone that perhaps isn't the same sex or gender that you are, but like, you are going to see yourself. You're going to see your family. You're going to see your kids. You're going to see your roles. You know, like, I really saw myself a lot in Mary Elizabeth's character because, like she said, in the sandwich generation, my mom is getting older. I have a 3-year-old. So, like, I'm stuck in the middle as a working mom all the time. And I just felt like, I'll be honest, I haven't even been able to finish the series because I just was like, it felt so close to me that I was like, I gotta watch the rest of my mother, you know, like, and I really hope people watch the show and see themselves, and I think that they will. I really think they will.
Yeah.
I saw myself, and I did watch it with my mother. We stayed up till 2 a.m. watching it.
See? That's what we want. That's what we want.
And that's what you got. And that is my time.
Yeah.
But thank you, ladies.
So
It was
nice to
wonderful to
meet
meet you and talk to you.
Lovely
Thank
chatting
you.
with you.
Yeah,
Thank you so
thanks.
much.
All right. Bye.
I did really stay up watching this till 2 a.m. with my mom. That one and another series that I'm going to tell you guys about called No Good Deed, which is coming later on midway in December via Netflix. But I just wanted to point out that the documentary that Michael Schur was speaking about is a documentary called The Mole Agent that he also directed. And when he speaks of Stephen McKinley Henderson, he's speaking of this man here. We lost Stephen McKinley Henderson early this year, but he is a lauded and applauded thespian. Lately, as of late, he's been in lots and lots of movies. He was also in Fences, the August Wilson version of Fences that was directed and starred Denzel Washington and garnered an Oscar for Viola Davis. So I would be remiss in speaking further about a man on the inside without paying homage to that wonderful, wonderful actor. Again, make sure you pay attention to The Piano Lesson and Queer, starring Danielle Craig. This is him and Luca and his co-star at the Venice Film Festival, which I mentioned when I spoke of the review. All right, so now we're going to get into a little surveillance. You know this face right here. This is Ronan Farrow. He is Mia Farrow and Woody Allen's son. Ronan Farrow is an investigative journalist, and he primarily works freelance for The New Yorker. And he has a new documentary, which is streaming on HBO Max right now, called Surveilled, tracking this Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist as he investigates the growing business of commercial spyware, following the story from New York City to Tel Aviv to Israel, a center of spy espionage cyber technology. Did y'all know that? Because I didn't know that. Once a target of covert surveillance himself, Farrow explores the multi-million-dollar industry, addressing the contradictory uses and implications of phone hacking, the ability to monitor criminal activity, and the attendant threats to civil liberties. Before I get into that, because I got sorry about that. I got lots of things to say about this particular film. Let's get into these comments that I saw. My father's son, I literally just finished binging this series. You're talking about a man on the inside. It was great. It really was. Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much. I try. I try to look great all the time. It don't always work out that way. Oh, and that was me. So happy you enjoyed it. Anywho, getting on with the show. let's talk about this surveillance documentary. Now, this is the thing. Ronan starts out talking about how he had been surveilled himself when he did that documentary about Harvey Weinstein, how, his phone was being tracked and how awkward and crazy that whole situation was. So it begged the question of him finding out a little more about it. Now, this documentary, it is a little laborious, but it's fascinating all the less because they use a lot of terminology and talk about a lot of things that if you're not a techie, it kind of goes over your head. I'm a self-proclaimed techie, and it even went over my head, a lot of it. But what they do talk about is they talk about the capability of taking control over cell phones without the owner's knowledge, and it's been long billed as a tool purchased by governments to fight terrorism and is now appearing on phones of activists, journalists, politicians, and ordinary people. If for nothing else, you need to watch this documentary just to be informed. It particularly talks about a company called the N, like in Nancy, SO Group. And that group works with some executives behind the controversial spyware Pegasus, which is a terminology and a company that we heard a lot when the president-elect was running for the presidency 4 years ago. He kept saying, or his team kept saying, not him, but his team kept saying that the election was rigged because the machines were owned by Pegasus, blah, 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 blah. So it's fascinating for all those reasons. And Farrow goes to Spain. He goes, which come to find out is the largest documented mass hack commercial spyware known. That spyware that I talked about, that's done through Pegasus and NSO, is ridiculous. And it's something that is bringing the 21st century into a cyber warfare. We're about to be in a place where they can track. Well, we already are in a place where we literally can be tracked by everything we do. Every time you use a GPS, every time you use social media, every time you send an email, every time you talk on the phone, every time you let your location be found, you are being tracked by your cell phone. You don't know you don't know if it's being tracked by the companies that you're using the phone through, and or whether or not it is being tracked through some other entity that you don't know about. You can also be tracked through your Alexa app. I can't say it too loud because she's in the room with me and she might start, doing stuff. But the apps, the Roku, all those little devices that you can use as timers and alarms, and all of those things can help you assist in you getting tracked. So again, Surveilled, Surveilled, featuring Ronan Farrow, is now streaming on HBO Max. HBO and Max. It is currently streaming there. So we're gonna get away from the surveillance and the spies and stuff, and we're gonna come on over to Raoul Peck. Now, Raoul Peck had a documentary a few years ago called I Am Not Your Negro. Well, now he's back, and he has a film that's called Ernest Cole, Lost and Found. Ernest Cole was a photographer, really famous photographer, Pulitzer Prize, well, not Pulitzer Prize, but he is a very famous photographer whose work ended up being lost at some point because he became homeless. He wasn't able to keep track of his things. And so his stuff became lost, and it was somehow found. Some 6,000 something photos were found and sent to a bank in Switzerland. This is the craziest story I've ever heard. I'm going to come back on camera for this one because you need to hear me tell this one. So hold on. Let me find it. Oh, there we go. So he had all these photographs. These photographs, somehow, somewhere, somebody got a hold of all of his stuff, his camera equipment and everything, put it in a safety deposit box in Switzerland. And then some years later, the bank contacted his known living family members and said, hey, we have your relative's stuff. We have his photographs. We have his negatives. We have all these things. They're in a safety deposit box. The only catch is you have to come here to pick it up. So his nephew went over there to pick it up. And when I tell you, you find these things, they're in pristine condition. The negatives haven't dissipated, because sometimes if you don't store negatives and film in the right temperature conditions, the film can literally crumble in your hands. But that is not the case with Raoul. That's not the case with Ernest Cole's things. It did not do that, and they found it, and they have. So Raoul Peck got in touch with the nephew, and the two of them have collaborated to make this documentary and bring attention to a name that, I don't know about y'all, but I had never heard of Ernest Cole ever in my life. Let's hit some of these comments. You heard, yes, I can't say the name. It's almost like saying that Scottish play name when you in the room with her. But yes, she listens when you don't call her. And I've had her say stuff to me when I didn't even call her name. I'm like, what the actual hell is going on? Flowers. Thank you, my boo-boo. Thank you so much. But yeah, I've been in the room and not called her name, and she'll be asking me questions and then have an attitude. I'm like, electronic diva, I'm gonna need you to get your life and stop giving me all this attitude. I will unplug your ass. Okay. Anywho, I digress. Oh my God. I've been in that situation, and it's definitely it's not cute. It really is not. Before I get on to the interview with Raoul Peck, I wanted to remind you guys that my review of the piano lesson is at the wrap. So my review of the piano lesson is at the wrap. And in addition to the review of the piano lesson, I have this Q&A that is at rogerebert.com that is printed, that I did with Malcolm Washington, John David Washington, and Danielle Deadweiler. So you can find 2 pieces by me about the piano lesson online right now. All righty. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let you take a look and a listen to this interview with Mr. Raoul Peck talking about Ernest Cole, Lost and Found. When you draw the parallels between apartheid in South Africa and the Jim Crow South, and I remember the narrator, who's done beautifully by Lakeith Stanfield, says in South Africa, he's afraid of being arrested, but in the Jim Crow South, he's afraid of being shot.
Yeah.
That statement, it created such a visceral reaction in me when I heard it. How did you process that how did you process all of that for this film? Because that's a reality, particularly for Black men.
When you're considering the human condition, those realities are similar. And by the way, that sentence is from Ernest Cole himself. And it reflects the reality, and it allows the viewer, whether you are in South Africa or you are here, to reflect on that, the similitude and the differences, and that it's always about seeing the world through different eyes. And I'm sure you were shocked because it revealed something about your reality. And it gives it a distance. At the same time, it felt very close home. And by the way, Baldwin had the same experience going to the South. He wrote about it. He landed at the airport. He was afraid. He was afraid of every look, of what he was saying, and Medgar Evers, who had asked him to come, had warned him, just mind your own business, don't do this, don't do that. But he didn't believe it, and you can only realize that when you are there, and you have this story of Emmett Till, who had the wrong look or the wrong gesture, and that killed him, and that they tortured him, they gave him a lesson, and they killed him the brutal way possible. So yes, that moment and indicates you that, wow, this is real. It's not a game.
Do you think that any or all of that had, and I'm theorizing here, had any play into his work disappearing and him not being found for a minute until he was close to the end?
Oh yes, I think the one of the things that were important for me is the fact that people who wrote about Ernest Cole in the following years always say, "Well, he was famous, this incredible photograph, and then he became homeless and disappeared." And but none of them was saying what happened. You know, none of them explained that. And for me, that was the first thing that jumped into my mind is that I know that feeling. This is exile. This exile, you know, brought him down like this. Exile and not the capacity to become the artist you wanted to become. You know, you were pigeonholed. They were asking you, as he say, you know, he didn't want to become a chronicler of misery. But that's where the assignment they were giving him. So the mixture of those things, and you're isolated as a foreigner in a country that was supposed to be a country of milk and honey.
I want to talk about your musical choices because they range the gamut from like Ellington to more current, you know, jazz pieces. And I just wanted to find out what was the impetus to choose those particular pieces for the film.
You know, as we were editing the film, it was clear for us that the film was much more than just Ernest. It was about all the others who were in exile, all the artists, all the music, all the writers. So I wanted to include everybody. I wanted for us to be immersed in that world, in that music, in that atmosphere. So yeah, the music choices were evidently mostly South African, and even Ellington. It's a music that is called African Flowers, which
I'd never heard that piece before, but I loved it. I was like, oh, it made me literally want to go and look up some more Ellington pieces when I saw the title African Flower. I was like, oh, I've never heard that piece. We've heard A Train, we've heard all these other things, you know, the more mainstream stuff, but I had never heard that. So it made me want to
there are a lot of both from Ellington and Billy Strayhorn, and I know that because we have a screenplay on Ellington and Strayhorn. And yes, those. So I knew that beautiful piece of music, and so for me, it's always about connecting worlds and connecting and allows you, you know, for you, by example, to discover, well, there is Ellington who did that, you know, because we are separated by a lot of nonsense, and my job is to connect the dots, to show that we are one world, we are one people. And we shouldn't divide ourselves, but we should be a collective.
You're absolutely right. How much of the archival footage did you actually have access to, and how much of it did you actually use?
Well, because you know, it's the family for me is part of the project, so we had access to everything, and
good.
Incredible partners because that type of work necessite all the time fact checking. I need to know the date. I need to know where was he at the time. Do you have any information about who is on that picture, etc., etc. So it's a sort of detective work all the time. And when you have an estate that you know, in particular Leslie Matezelne, who is Ernest Cole's nephew, who would back and forth, you know, answer or emails or calls. And so that was an important part of the team for an artist to know that all his material, all his legacy is safe somewhere, and somebody, his family, is taking care of it.
I want to know what it is for you that draws you to these stories of the James Baldwins, the Ernest Coles, the people that have been exiled, the people who can no literally no longer speak for themselves. What is it that draws you to those stories and makes you compelled to bring it to the masses?
Baldwin, that was clear. He changed my life when I was 16, and he was a guiding light all my life. He's still one today. When I have problems deciphering what's happening in this country, I go back to him, and the answer is there. It's almost like a Bible. Ernest Cole, I just find back my youth. When I was 17 in Berlin, we were using his picture to fight the apartheid regime from abroad. And my friends, my elders at the time, because I was very young, they were the one educating me. So as soon as the family came to me, it was family as well for me. It was, they were close people to me, to my heart, to who I am.
Of the thousands of photographs that you saw, what is the one that still lingers in your mind to this day?
The one about the policeman and this black family,
young boy,
the young boy and the black woman and the blonde, and in the same city where actually that photo is a crime, but it still happened. And yes, pictures that basically show the ugliness and the absurdity of the beast, or the one, of course, I find the most efficient. And even though there is a humanity in it, it's about love somehow, or let's say there is something human in that exchange, even though there might be, some fear, some power power differences between the subjects there, but still there is something human in that situation.
Especially in the times that we're living in right now, where things are attempting to be erased regarding us. So
Yes.
Thank you for that. And thank you for taking the time to speak to me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I really am glad he enjoyed it. I enjoyed having that conversation with him as well. Let's check the chat room one more time before I get into some other things. Yes, honey, she had an attitude, and I was like, I'm gonna need you to calm down. Anyway, let me just tell you a little bit, give you a little bit more context about the Ernest Cole doc. So, Raoul Peck is a Oscar-nominated director, and like I said, this film is chronicling the work of Ernest Cole, one of the first Black freelance photographers in South Africa, whose early pictures, shocking at the time of his first publication, revealed to the world Black life under apartheid. He fled. Now, Cole himself fled South Africa in 1966 and lived in exile in America, where he photographed extensively in New York City as well as the South, fascinated by the ways this country could be at times so vastly different and at other times so eerily similar to the segregated culture that he came from. When he died, I'm sorry, let me back it up. So when he died, more than 60,000 of his 35 millimeter film negatives were discovered in a bank vault in Sweden. That's what I was telling you earlier. Most considered lost forever, especially the thousands of pictures that he shot in the US. But as I said earlier, his relatives have recovered those photographs. Now, they haven't recovered all of them. The bank is still holding on to some of them, saying, y'all got to come back here and get them. The story is very complex, but it is in theaters right now. And you should check it out. I think it's Magnolia Pictures, I think is the studio. And if I'm wrong, I'll let you know. But I think it's Magnolia Pictures. But it's in studios right now. So just to recap the films that we did talk about today that I'm suggesting that you guys go see, go over to Netflix and check out The Piano Lesson. Also on Netflix is A Man on the Inside, starring the spectacular Ted Danson and this lovely man that we lost this year, Stephen McKinley Henderson. Queer is coming to theaters on November 27th, starring Daniel Craig. You want to check that out. Ronan Farrow's Surveilled will be on HBO and Max. It is streaming there right now.
BLITZ has been in theaters since November 1st, starring Saoirse Ronan, and it is a great film. It's a little dark, it's a little heavy, but you'll love it. I also wanted to make you aware of this documentary that I talked about earlier when I was at Sundance. It says coming soon in that poster, but it actually is not coming soon. But here's my review to that film right there. It's called Never Look Away, and it deals with the photojournalist Margaret Moth. Now, you might remember me talking about Margaret Moth when I did the interview with Kate Winslet, talking about the journalist Lee Miller. But it is a really wonderful documentary, and you guys should check it out if you have the opportunity to do so. And last but not least, like I said, Ernest Cole, Lost and Found, is in theaters as of November 22nd. When I come back next week, I'm going to have the cast of No Good Deed, including Lisa Kudrow and Ray Romano, among other people. I'm going to be doing a review of The Last Showgirl. Finally, I've done Q&As for it. I've seen the movie, but now I want to tell y'all all about it. I'm going to talk about September 5th later on. September 5th actually was supposed to come out in the coming weeks, and the release date has now been pushed back to December 13th, I believe. I will be also talking about The Order with Journey Smollett. I have that entire cast, and No Good Deed will hit Netflix on December 12th. And when I come back, when I have my show on December 22nd, so my last show of 2024 will be on December 22nd, and I will not be returning after December 22nd until January 5th, because your girl needs some time to rest up and get ready for my 500th episode. Yes, I have been doing 500 episodes of the Curvy Film Critic. I can't even believe it myself. So we're going to do a whole little anniversary show and let you see that in those 2 weeks that you won't see me from December 22nd to January 5th. I'll have some interviews up and reviews up that I never got a chance to get to because I was so incredibly busy. What's happening in this chat room? What y'all saying? Dang, it on Max? Yes, it's on Max. It is on, did I put it up? You said dang on Max? Yes, it is on Max. So again, thanks so much to my father, son, Brandon, and Sad Productions for tuning in live, among other people. I know that folk check this after the fact, and my feelings are not hurt, honey. As long as you see it, it's all good in the hood with me. Yes, boo. 500 episodes, and I have worked so incredibly hard to build this into something that entertains and informs while talking to people above the line and below the line, because it's really important to me to lift up filmmakers. Without the filmmakers and the sound designers and the production designers and the costume designers and the script writers and everything that makes a film whole, we don't have a movie to go watch. Without the cinema, the box office owners, we don't have cinema to watch. So I always try to shout them out and pay homage to them. But before I go, this is part of my Wicked swag, y'all. My little Wicked sweater. I'm so proud of her. And I'm just gonna put this up one more time. Yes, Ariana Grande loves me, and I love her too. So having said that, thank y'all so very much for coming through and hollering at a girl. And yeah, so I will see you next week. And that's it. Love, peace, and hair grease, y'all. Deuces.
Hold up. Wait a minute. I wish you love, peace, and hair grease.
Love, peace, and hair grease, y'all.
Hold up. Wait a minute. I wish you love, peace, and hair grease.
Love,